Empire. Solving the pricey secondary ticket marketplace.
But leading up to a game, there are so many factors that are affecting weather changes, injuries, substitutions, a new starting pitcher, even traffic, things like that, that literally in the hours leading up to the game are changing what tickets are worth.
That's Jason Shatsky, CEO of TicketRev, who is hoping to democratize the middleman in ticket resales. This is the Future Sport Podcast. I'm Bram Weinstein. There has been a revolution in the secondary ticket market that went from scalping tickets to markets and ultimately preferred partners of teams and leagues. The fees associated are often not consumer-friendly, and that's among other issues motivated behind the idea of TicketRev. Our guest this week is Jason Shatsky. He's the founder and the CEO of TicketRev, which is a buyer-driven marketplace for event tickets. They allows buyers the ability to name their price, and sellers can accept bids in one click. It is potentially going to turn the secondary ticket market upside down. Hi, Jason. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
All right. Listen, I'm a big sports fan. I like to go to a lot of games. I don't have season tickets. You know my story and you know where I'm going. This marketplace, on its whole, I agree with you, has issues. So give me the backdrop of TicketRev and why you wanted to start this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm in the same boat as you. Big sports fan myself, love going to games, but hate the process of buying and reselling tickets. Ticketing is a necessary evil. It's the only way to experience our favorite players and teams live. I'm someone, like I said, who's been frustrated with the process and felt like there has to be a better way. I've tried the other marketplaces, the other apps. I've tried scalping tickets on the street. I've tried going up to the box office, and you always feel like you're stuck paying the highest prices and not getting the best seats. And so I came up with an idea of how we could make the process of buying and selling tickets better. So that's what landed me here, and super excited to chat with you today.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about what that process is that is different from the other marketplaces.
Yeah, absolutely. Our mission with TicketRev is to help fans find cheaper tickets and to help sellers be able to sell their inventory faster. And so the way we do that is essentially by allowing buyers to name their price for the tickets that they want. So for example, let's say you and I want to go to an upcoming New York Yankees game. We go on TicketRev and say, hey, we'll take 2 tickets at $100 each, located anywhere in the lower level. Just find us a seller for a particular game or even a particular series. And then our platform will send these offers directly to inventory holders for the game. It'll provide them with an opportunity to be able to not only accept the offer if they'd like to, but understand the market of how much fans are willing to spend for their tickets. Okay.
And where is this inventory? Is that located on the other secondary markets? Like, how do you find the sellers?
Yeah, so I think a big misconception and what people don't realize in ticketing is that most of the inventory on the secondary market is actually owned by ticket brokers and professional ticket resellers, for lack of a better word. And so it's actually a much smaller percentage of season ticket holders or folks like you and I who have tickets for a game or show and can't go anymore, but rather people who are holding, 4, 5, 6 figures worth of inventory. And so we're able to work directly with these ticket brokers who have inventory for different games and teams and be able to work directly with them, provide them with these offers, and then they have the ability to accept or not these requests that come into our platform.
All right, let me ask a sausage is made question. How do they get all the tickets in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, if you think about it, team revenue and ticket sales is proportional to team performance, right? If a team is number one in the standings, they're going to sell more tickets. But the reality is that every team, no matter what the franchise is going to have a volatile trajectory over 5 years or a decade or even more. And so to To offset that risk, teams will often make deals with these ticket brokers, or I like to call them professional ticket resellers, in order to guarantee them a certain amount of inventory, a certain amount of revenue that isn't necessarily tied to team performance. And these ticket brokers are taking the risk on selling the inventory on the secondary market. Teams are very strategic in how they sell their inventory. They'll cap a certain amount on season tickets. They'll have a certain amount for brokers. They'll keep a certain amount for groups and parties and things like that. And then they'll have a certain amount of individual tickets that you can purchase, at the box office leading up to the game, because they want to make sure that they can capitalize on the potential revenue if the team is performing well.
Okay, so let's go back to your example where you and I want to go to a Yankees game. We're only willing to spend $100 a ticket, but we do want to be in the lower level, but we're not that picky. We're willing to take anywhere in the lower level in Yankee Stadium. And the recent, obviously, what we're looking at anywhere else, that price is low. So what motivates the ticket brokers to give it to you at the price that we're asking?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a common question that we get, and the reality is that ticket sellers are competing with everyone else, right? The only way right now, prior to TicketRev existing, is for a seller to try and predict what their tickets are worth by looking at historical data, by looking at what other sellers have their tickets listed at. But what TicketRev does is we provide this real-time data that otherwise doesn't exist, right? If you think we could stick with the New York Yankees game, for example. Leading up to a game, there are so many factors that are affecting weather changes, injuries, substitutions, a new starting pitcher, even traffic, things like that literally in the hours leading up to the game are changing what tickets are worth. And sellers have no way of actually knowing this value other than just decreasing their price based on what other people have their tickets listed at. And so we are providing this real-time data to sellers. They have the ability to accept it, and you'd be surprised at how many tickets actually end up going unsold because sellers don't have the right data on what their tickets are worth and how to accurately price.
I mean, I wouldn't be. Watch any game on any night, and you'll see outside the NBA playoffs are going on. The stadiums are sold out. But pick your example of a Yankees game. Or the other night, my favorite baseball team, the Nationals, played Shohei Ohtani, and he's pitching, and the stadium's empty. So I'm going to guess that ticket brokers thought a Shohei Ohtani start would get a certain price, and it didn't that night.
Exactly. And that's why a lot of times when the teams release the attendance numbers, they're not saying how many people actually went through the gate, but rather how many tickets were sold, right? And there's often a big difference there. And so it's really interesting how that works and how the value continues to change.
Okay. All right. I saw a clip with you pitching Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, and he asked you the question, you're doing this, what's going to stop Ticketmaster, SeatGeek, the other StubHub, the major secondary markets from going, great idea, let's just take it from you. And I liked how you answered it. Could you kind of repeat that for our audience of why you're looking at this and why this is something that doesn't get just usurped by the bigger platforms?
Yeah. I mean, the reality is that we've been working on TicketRev for quite some time, and the concept of this buyer-driven market or this reverse marketplace it's not new. It exists in other industries, but it hasn't been successful in ticketing. We believe that we're the ones that can do this from a startup and from an entrepreneurship perspective. And the reality is that a concept like this is not a feature or a product launch of another marketplace, right? This needs to be a standalone product. If you look at the current ticketing landscape, right, you've got the major marketplaces in StubHub, SeatGeek, TickPick, Game Time, and Vivid, and each one of them has a small differentiating feature, right? SeatGeek has their best value ratings, TickPick has their no fees, Game Time has their last minute process. Most of this is the same inventory, right? If you open up 3, 4, 5 different tabs, you're going to see a lot of the same inventory. Sellers are distributing their inventory on all these different marketplaces. And so sellers love distribution. And we believe that from a fan and buyer perspective, we're targeting the fans who want the best value on tickets, who maybe is a casual fan who knows that the Angels are coming into DC for a 3-game series and don't care which one of those three they go to, as long as they can see Mike Trout, for example. From a pure business perspective, look at concepts like Airbnb and Uber and DoorDash, right? These are companies that aren't necessarily proprietary in the technology, but it's about the brand and it's about the execution.
Okay. Let me ask this then. Okay. If the object for all of the parties, the teams, the leagues, the sellers, and the secondary markets is just to sell more tickets and get more people in the building, why aren't they doing this?
Yeah, because the biggest issue with that is you have to maintain the value of the ticket, right? And so an obvious way to increase people going to the game is to lower prices, right? And that the problem there is that it devalues the product. The reality is that fans want to feel like they're getting a deal, right? And so if a team drops ticket prices from $10 to $5 to $1, if other people can get them at that price, it doesn't necessarily feel like a deal. It's less about a specific budget and more about value, right? That's what we've seen.
Yeah.
So the way that our product works is you actually when you go on our platform and select a team or an artist that you want to see, you're going to see a suggested range of what we project is a good offer. And we have a lot of users that will actually put their request just below that because they want to feel like they're getting a deal. So there's a orange horizontal bar on our app. A small portion of it is green, suggested range. If you want to make sure that you're going to get your request accepted, we're generally suggesting to go lower to middle of that bar. But we find a lot of people who, like I said, are going just below it to try and get a deal.
I don't know if your goal at some point is to work directly with leagues and teams, but with that discussion of they don't want to devalue their product or the price, how does that coexist if you wanted to have partnerships with teams and leagues and they know that not for every game, but for some, for sure, the price of the tickets are going to go down from the number that they would intend and want it to be?
Right. So teams have historical data on when prices drop, right? There's obviously some fans who attempt to wait until closer to the event in hopes of a price drop. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But like I said, the real key for us is providing this real-time data, both to resellers and also to teams. And so part of the model is to be able to work directly with teams. Ultimately, our vision is to change the way that tickets are purchased in giving fans more power in the experience, right? The problem at hand here is not just that tickets are expensive, but the fact that sellers are the ones controlling how tickets are exchanged, right?
Yes.
So our vision is to give buyers more power, more freedom in this process, and to get buyers used to being able to name their own price and have the ability to go for a certain budget.
I mean, it's interesting because like everybody who's on any airplane paid a different price for the tickets that they paid to get onto the airplane.
Right.
They just don't know that, right? So I suppose similarly, that could be, I guess that's happening at sports events too. So when we talk about what's the value of something, well, if you don't know what I paid to get in, what's the difference, really?
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting point. And you know, I compare airlines and tickets a lot, and I mentioned this before, but they're both necessary evils, right? Everyone wants to travel, everyone wants to go to games, but nobody likes the process of buying tickets for either of them. And to your point, people at a game, they want to think that they spent less than the person next to them or the person behind them or in front of them. And so what's really great about our product is if tickets are currently valued at, let's say, $50 and you put up a $40 offer, if there's a price drop, if prices fall, our technology will automatically purchase those tickets for you, right? So you find a lot of people are constantly checking different airline websites in the event that they're flying, or checking different ticket sites to try and figure out what day, what time can I find the best deal, how far out. But our system does that automatically for you.
Okay. Obviously, this is a very timely conversation. Even Congress is looking into Ticketmaster and all sorts of what's happening in that marketplace. whether they have monopolies, whether the fees that they're charging are too exorbitant. Can you just kind of broadly tell me what you're looking at as you watch everyone kind of look at this industry and try to figure out what's next for it?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it all revolves around pricing, right? This is a business, and just like any other business, people want to make as much money as possible. And so when we see issues with Ticketmaster, for example, my belief is that what they're doing is trying to figure out what is the absolute maximum that we can charge for these tickets. Um, it's from the perspective of an artist or a team when they see sales on the secondary market that are higher than what they sell them for. Their thought is, how can we maximize on what the end user is going to pay? And so I believe that what's happening with these releases on Ticketmaster and other platforms is they're releasing a certain amount of tickets. They're measuring demand based on site traffic, waitlist signups, etc. Excuse me. And as they're measuring demand, they're able to raise prices and basically show limited inventory as if the event is going to sell out, and in hopes of catching that fear of missing out. But the reality today in this ticketing world is that the initial on sale is not always the best time to be buying tickets. A lot of people are used to the first on sale minute being the time where ticket prices are lowest, and that's not the case anymore. And so I think we see, from my perspective, I see the value that TicketRev brings long term is being able to be the platform that is collecting data on the true demand of tickets. Right? I used the term real time data before.
Yeah.
And at scale, we have the data on what fans are willing to pay. And so rather than artists or teams or platforms investing time and resources and energy and labor into trying to predict what's the most that people will spend, our platform is literally set up where we ask them, how much will you pay for these tickets?
Yep. Okay. But you guys aren't a charity either. So how are you thinking through fair fees for doing these transactions for people?
Yeah. So right now we do not charge buyers any fees. We are only taking a commission from the seller. As in one of the things when we first started was figuring out, like, how do people feel about ticketing? And one of the things that has spoiled people from even wanting to buy tickets online or on their phone is the fees that are associated with tickets. And so
I'm one of those people that when I put in for a ticket and then I find out it is 25 to 30% higher at checkout, I'm furious, frankly.
Yeah. It's almost something people go in feeling uneasy because they know that that's going to happen, and you never know what the percentage really is going to be on the fees. And it's interesting. A lot of people have said to me, well, why don't they just all show the total price? And I'm sure that they've done their research and find that more sales convert when that happens at checkout, and it sucks. It makes the entire industry look bad. And so what we've decided to do is not charge buyers any fees. So when you come on our platform and you submit a request for $100, you are paying $100. There's nothing additional on that. We are only making money from the seller.
Okay. All right. Last thing. It seems that you have some form of vision of what buying a ticket to a game looks like in the future. So do you have a utopian view of how we are going to go to sporting events or concerts or things like that?
In terms of a utopian view, I think there's so many cool things that I've heard. One of the ones that I think is most fascinating is not actually having a ticket on your phone, but them somehow knowing that it's you or your eyes or your body scan as you walk through that knows that you own that ticket. So I've heard that rumor, which I think is super cool. But ultimately, I think that the future in ticketing is buyers first, giving more power back to fans, and ultimately creating a way that people get to see their favorite teams or artists without that anxiety and that stress of no freedom, all the fees, and just a way that people feel empowered to want to experience live more. We're in a world now post pandemic where we've seen a lot of things shift shift virtually, but something that's never going to go away is being able to experience seeing your favorite team or seeing your favorite artist live. And so I'm incredibly excited about the future and how live events ultimately bring people together.
Okay, last thing. My 13-year-old daughter wants to see Taylor Swift. Is there a way that you could help me do that without me selling my house?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's a lot of Taylor Swift inventory that exists. Obviously, prices are high. We've seen a number of users be successful on our platform in finding Taylor Swift tickets. Again, we provide a suggested range of what we think is the best request to send to sellers. And so we always recommend checking out our app. We're available in every city in the U.S. You can download it today on iPhone or Android by searching TicketRev, TicketRev. You can search for Taylor Swift and submit a request, and we'll do our best to find a seller. Jason
Shatsky is the founder and the CEO of TicketRev. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
On the next Future Sport podcast, you can buy stock in potential rising stars.
However, for us, it's very important that we give, basically with Fantium, we give every player the chance to get there, right? Because if you are today a 16-year-old player and you have to stop basically playing tennis, then you will never basically have the option to become Nishikori, become Roger Federer, become Serena Williams, etc.
That's Jonathan Ludwig, CEO of Fantium, which is supporting athletes who don't have the requisite funding to potentially reach stardom. That will do it for this episode. As always, the future is now. This is the Future Sport Podcast. I'm Bram Weinstein.